All right, Kip, it's good to see you again. This is our second AMA within a couple of days. The guys don't know that because we release them, every week at a
Yeah.
time. But I'm getting sick of seeing you, man. Got to be honest with you on that.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't think that you're going to start having two AMAs a week.
No,
That's not the
no,
expectation we're trying to set here. So
no, we're not. Well, no, but like I said, we're not. They're not going to get it twice a week. They're going to get it spread out. So we
yeah,
just happen to be
yeah,
recording early because we're trying to accommodate. Actually, that's a pretty good lesson, though, Kip. Is things have to happen, right? Things move forward, things progress, schedules, agendas need to be met, expectations need to be filled. Whether you're going to be around or not around or on vacation or you have this excuse or that excuse, if you make a commitment to doing something, make sure it gets done. If that means we got to record twice in 1 week, or you have to run solo, or I have to run solo, or we have to bring somebody in like Sean, guys, get your commitments done. And there's two reasons. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Number one is you want to be a man of your word. That's how you garner and foster trust and credibility with other people. And number two, you won't run your mouth so easily if you actually follow through on the commitments you make, because all of us have committed to doing things that we don't want to do. And then we drudge through it and hopefully we get it done. But if there's a little bit of sting, a little bit of pain to doing something you don't want to do, that's actually good, because maybe next time you'll think twice about committing to something that you shouldn't commit to.
Yeah. I learned this lesson years ago, and it seemed like, it was at the time, it was like this major light bulb. And I thought, whoa, by me not honoring my word and my commitments, even when it's difficult, I hijack the opportunity to learn from saying yes to too many things.
Exactly. Only if you're cognizant of it.
Exactly. But you shortcut it, and then you'll keep shortcutting. And you're like, oh, there's no drawback to this.
There's no consequence. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You rob yourself of the consequence and the opportunity to learn.
Yeah. I mean, that's why these practices and activities that I know I'm personally engaged in, that you're personally engaged in, whether it's jujitsu or archery, any number of things you could be doing, one of the benefits that we don't often talk about is immediate and instantaneous feedback.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm assuming that's why one of the things, I mean, you've used this analogy in the past of like, hey, if you're going to have to do one thing, start working out right away.
Right.
Right. I'm assuming that's why you give that recommendation.
That's part of it. But the other part of working out immediately is that you're going to experience, especially if there's a wide gap between where you are now and where you want to be, you're going to experience instantaneous results. For example, if you're 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds overweight right now, you could do something for 5 days. Like you could commit to drinking a gallon of water, commit to getting 10,000 steps in, committing to go to the gym 3 to 5 days a week, and committed to cut out processed sugar, and you would probably lose 10 pounds this week. And that instantaneous and immediate feedback might be the fodder that you need to keep going. And this is also the reason that we do the after action review all the time, because a lot of guys aren't cognizant of what they're doing, why they're doing it, what results it's producing. And so we tell you deliberately and intentionally, do an after action review, guys. Like, go through at the end of every conversation, interaction, game, assignment, task, project, meeting, etc. Do an after action review and really analyze your performance so you can figure out and pinpoint where you need to improve, what you did very well, and how you need to get better moving forward.
And get that immediate feedback versus, oh, I've been showing up this way to meetings for the last 10 years. And I finally realized that, that I come across arrogant or a jerk versus like, oh man, I should have just had some self-assessment, over the years to learn that on my own.
We talked about it weeks ago where, if a dog pees on your carpet and you don't do anything, and then 2 weeks later, you just come up and you kick the dog in the ribs, it's not going to have any idea in the world why you're upset. But that's what we do actually with our kids. I know I do. If I'm being truthful, that's what I do with my kids. Like I get upset about something, whether it's something they did or didn't do, or maybe it's even not related to them at all. And I take out some work frustration on my kids because I was inadequate or incapable or unwilling to actually meet the challenge where it was, so that I didn't have to bring it home and release it on my kids or my wife or any number of people that I really care about.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, and we're creatures of remembering our emotional state, not facts.
Yeah.
And so you could look at it from like a marriage perspective, or at least I'm thinking about this is like, well, how many times has my spouse did something that bothered me? I didn't say something. I hold back. And then eventually I'm like, okay, now I'm going to bring it up. She doesn't remember even like what she did in that moment, like I've been fostering emotional feelings. But if I had that conversation with her in that moment, she could probably relate to, oh yeah, I could see how that came across that way because that just happened. And I could actually remember versus you bringing up stuff from like, 6 months ago. Remember that one time? They're like, I don't even remember the day. I don't even know what you're talking about. Right.
So. Well, I also actually think it gets worse even than what you're just saying, because
you make it bigger. Yeah.
You make it bigger than it is. So you think about, you're standing on the top of a snowy hill and you get a little snowball started, you pack it up and you roll it down the hill, and it's pretty manageable when you push it down. But the longer it goes and the more it rolls and the further it gets, the more snow it picks up. And over time, it's this huge boulder of a snowball. And most of what's attached to it has nothing to do with the original snowball. You just start attaching all these other little things that you're pissed off about, whether it's your own performance or your own inadequacies or childhood trauma that you haven't dealt with. And then you dump the entire boulder of a snowball on your wife when it was just, hey, I just want you to communicate with me on some money issues. Like, just deal with it right there. And then you don't have to deal with it later down the road. All right.
Yeah,
man, what a way to kick the podcast off.
We're done.
There's nothing more that we could say that's going to be better than that, guys. All right. Well, I know a couple of weeks ago we had solicited some questions on Facebook, and it seems like we got maybe through, 30 to 50% of them. So we're fielding the additional questions from the Facebook group, and let's get after it.
Yes, sir. And that's facebook.com/group/orderman. All right, Michael Cole, what specifically do you do to sharpen the axe on a regular basis? I love how he went from sharpening the side of the axe, a little bit order man reference there.
It's way better than the saw. The axe is way better than the saw. Yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of different ways. It depends on which axe you're talking about. We got to realize there's different axes, right? Like I even think about that when it comes to chopping wood. You have your splitting axe, you have your maul, like there's different axes that serve different purposes, and there's different facets of your life. So if you're talking about the physical fitness axe, then it might be jujitsu or just doing some strength training through my fitness coach, Josiah Novak. If you're talking about the mental axe, then that's going to be doing a master class or reading a book that happens to be the book of the month for our Iron Council, or a book that maybe is in anticipation and research for a guest that's coming up. If you're talking about the spiritual axe, it's just simply reading scripture and praying and communicating with my family and doing devotionals and all that kind of thing. So I don't know which axe you're talking about, but there's 3 really good ways to do it. Your physical axe. By the way, the physical axe actually also for me covers the mental component, not exclusively. I'm not saying you get to absolve yourself of like reading and learning new information, but there's
there's a mental benefit to it. Yeah,
totally. There's another axe that I think that we need to sharpen, and that's the creativity axe that a lot of us don't do, because what we do is we get into these ruts, right? And so the rut is, well, I wake up at 6, I go train, I drink water, I do my daily plan, I do my battle plan, I go into work, I complete. Right. And there's no room for creativity in that at all. So I believe that it's very, very important that you sharpen the creativity axe. And the best way to do that is to find something that sounds interesting to you and just dabble. Like just delve into it a little bit. You guys know I picked up the guitar a while back. I haven't picked up the guitar for probably 4 to 5 months. And I'm okay with that, because that was creating or flexing my creative muscle, and it was teaching me new things. I had no grand illusions of performing in front of at your guys' dismay, all of you, but it flexed the creativity muscle. Sometimes my kids are like, hey, let's draw. And so we draw. I'm not a great artist, but I draw, and it's fun. Today, my boys said, Dad, come play football with us. And I said, okay. And so we went outside and I'm like, this is like we're just playing catch. Let's do something fun. So we created a game called Chicken. And so me and my two oldest boys came up with this like random stupid game and created our own rules and everything else. We also play another game that we created called Wall Ball. It's with a tennis ball it's just random. We created it. No rhyme or reason. We just wanted to do it. And it's fun. And I think that's important too, that we learn how to play and we flex that creative muscle just by being spontaneous and saying yes to something we normally wouldn't say yes to, and try to enjoy life to its fullest.
Yeah, I like it. Talking about the mental sharpening the saw. I finally trained. I trained last week.
Not saw.
Oh, axe. Sorry. And man, it felt good just to get my face smashed. Marcus was smashing my face, and I was like, I don't know why, but it feels so good.
Because you're a bit of a masochist like I am, and anybody who trains
it's a little weird. I was like, yeah. Is that
Kip,
all you
I'll
got?
do that anytime, man. I will do that anytime for you. If you ever need any of that.
It's weird.
It's not though. Like it's not though. It's weird that we're so docile that we don't actually like
if it's
the
not comfortable
of it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it needs to be comfortable, but it's
what
strange to me that we're so sedated that the pleasure of pain a little bit doesn't make you feel more alive. You know, like when I come back from jiu-jitsu and my elbow's hurting, I'm like, that hurts. But also like, I'm proud of that pain in my elbow because it means like I actually did something and exerted myself today, or I got a little battle wound or something maybe on my face. And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I got a battle wound on my face, you know? And that means you did something with your life. It's weird that you wouldn't want that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like leg day, man. I as miserable it is to go up and down stairs, I like it when I'm kind of like, oh man, my glutes. I'm like, it's a good sign.
What is it? Theodore Roosevelt's quote about, I'd rather I can't even, what is it? Like, I'd rather break down than wear out or something. I don't know. I'll have to go back because I totally slaughtered that, but he's got a great quote about wearing out versus growing old or something. You guys can correct, you know what I'm talking about. Find it
to
for
be like
me
used up, right?
Yeah, exactly. You guys find it for us and correct me because apparently you have no problem doing that. So just go ahead and continue on with that.
to continue to criticize us. You guys are great.
Right. But I'm asking for it this time. So it's solicited. So it's all good.
Keenan Webb, what's the most important question for your girlfriend that she should answer before you propose? This is kind of funny because it's like all based on the single question, whether he proposes or not. But you know what I mean? Let's play with it and say, you know, what kind of questions should you be asking and information you should know about your girlfriend before proposing?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, look, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this and answer it in the spirit of the question. But if you're already thinking about proposing and you're wondering what one question she should ask, or you should ask her, you're a little behind the 8 ball on that one a little bit. But in the spirit of the question, let's answer. I would say, what are your long-term goals when it comes to family?
Yeah.
So do you want to raise a family? Do you want to be a homemaker? Do you want to homeschool your children? How many kids do you want to have? Or do you want to pursue a career? Do you want me to be in the workforce and you would be in the workforce? Do you want to stay home? Do you want me to stay home? What's your thoughts on public school? Like everything revolving around family. And by the way, guys, please let me tell you this, and you don't need my permission, but you do need to understand this because society won't tell you this. Any answer that you don't like could be a deal breaker, and you have to make that decision. Because I know what a lot of people will do is they're like, well, yeah, she said she only wants a couple of kids and she wants to go in the workforce, but I'm really looking for a wife who wants to be a homemaker. But, you know, like we can work through that. No, like that might be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And people are going to call you shallow about it. They're going to try to criticize you and ridicule you and say you're outdated. And that's a prehistoric way of looking at relationships. It doesn't matter what other people think. If that's what you desire, then you're going to be better off finding a woman whose values align with yours, whether that's being at home or going into it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's in alignment with yours. And only you get to decide what the deal breakers are. And so does she too, for you.
Yeah.
So I would definitely ask about three primary things. family, finances. And if we were to break that down a little bit, I would say, what is your debt? Because when I marry you, I got to know what else am I marrying?
Yeah.
What are your assets? What do you think about money? How do you use money as a tool? How much money do you want to make? How do you want to invest? Like, these seem like silly questions. They're really not. After being married for 17 years, they are not silly questions, and they'd be better to address up front. So you got family, you've got finances, and then you have faith. Faith is very, very important. If you guys aren't in alignment on faith, there's going to be a lot of rifts in the relationship. And, maybe you're a Protestant and she's some other denomination of Christianity. Okay, look, I get it. Like, there's some differences. But if you're a Buddhist and she's a devout Catholic, like, you're probably going to have some problems in the way that you see things and the way that you raise your kids. So, like, why add that extra baggage to the relationship if you don't need to? Now, as some bonus questions, politics is important. People say, well, you could marry somebody who doesn't have the same politics as you. I don't think so. Especially in the polarizing age in which we live. Like, yeah, I know there's going to be some of you who are going to reach out and say, well, I'm conservative or I'm liberal and my wife's the opposite and we make it work. And I commend you. But you know what? There's no denying that's significantly harder than somebody who is on the same political side of the aisle. And if you're going to marry somebody who's conservative or liberal and it's at odds with what you believe, know that there's going to be challenges and headbutting and struggles, and it's not going to be good. And it's only adding baggage that doesn't need to be there as part of the relationship.
Yeah. Marriage is already hard.
It's already hard.
Like, even if you got the family, finances, faith, and politics all aligned, it's still going to be hard. Right.
Yes.
So, like, do not add extra stuff to the plate if you don't need to.
A couple other little pro tips here that I would suggest is really get to know your future in-laws, because the odds are is she's wanting to marry somebody like her father, and that she's probably going to be in large part a lot like her mother. So you really need to know how her mother and father operate. What's her family life like? What's their worldview? Because in large part, and I know there's exceptions, but in large part, she has developed her culture and beliefs and value systems from her parents. So wouldn't it be good to get to the source of things? Now, my in-laws are great. I've never had a problem with my in-laws. The only time I will say this, the only time I've had a problem with my in-laws is when my wife and I went through our separation. And outside of that, even during the separation, they were amicable and they would talk to me. They would help where they could. They had a weird, strained part of that too, because they're with their daughter, of course. So I've never had to deal with that, and I lucked out because I didn't interview my in-laws necessarily. But looking back, yes, I would definitely do that. I would definitely do that and advocate for that in other men.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, Ryan, because I'm thinking through this and how many guys might be listening to you give this advice of conversations and may ask their girlfriend these questions. And the answer is, well, I don't know. And then part of me thinking, you probably shouldn't be getting married, or you need to answer these questions. Like, we need to be able to answer these questions and they need to think through it. Right. It's just like the analogy we use sometimes about ask everyone in the room, who wants to be a millionaire? Everyone raises their hand, right? And then you list out all the requirements and everyone lowers their hands because they're like, oh, wait, I'm not willing to pay the price for that.
Yeah.
That's valuable. Why? Because then you don't go running around complaining and upset about your life because you're not a millionaire. Now you can actually go, no, I don't want to be one. Right. Because I'm not willing to do X. And we might be, especially I was this way when I was younger, not worried about these kind of things, right? You may be going, I don't care too much about my political viewpoints, or I'm not worried about faith too much. Well, guess what? Eventually you will be. Mm-hmm. And when you have kids, all of a sudden, it happens to a lot of people. All of a sudden they bring life into this world and they go, that whole eternal perspective and religious thing kind of is more important to me now. What am I going to do? And these are things that we should probably be figuring out before we go into a committed union with another adult. Just
100%.
My opinion.
I think it's well said. And the last thing I would reiterate here, Kip, is be receptive and open to your heart and your emotion. I think there is a time and a place for that. And
like checking your gut a little bit.
Yeah, I think your instinct is critical. How many of us will overlook red flags because we don't trust our gut? And maybe you can't fully explain even why on the other side of the spectrum, why you love a woman, and you don't need to fully explain it to have that feeling. So be open with your heart and also be open with your mind and logic and reason, and use both, and don't think with other parts of your body. Those are the parts of the body you should be thinking of if you want long-term success with your relationship.
Totally. Yeah. And if you feel rushed, don't do it. That's kind of like always, if you feel rushed or pressured, like, nah, just wait.
And don't, we're not saying, I don't think we're saying end it. I'm just saying, okay, well, hold on. The timing's off, and that's okay.
Sure.
It's okay.
Yeah. I was thinking your meet the in-laws was what you're going to say, see how well her mother aged determined.
I mean, look, I'm not above saying that's not a factor.
It crossed my mind when I met Asia's mom. I was like, she almost looks like your older sister. It's a done deal. Let's go ahead and get married.
I mean, my mother-in-law, she's a very classy woman. She's a beautiful woman. And, I'm not above saying that. Like, all these people want to run around.
Attraction is important. Yeah.
Well, they say, and they're like, well, what, it doesn't matter what's on the outside. Bullshit. Come on now. Like, I mean, yes, there's other, like, not only on the outside of what matters, because I know a lot of attractive women I wouldn't want to be in any sort of relationship with. But like, to say it's not a factor is ridiculous. Yeah, so for sure, it's okay. And the way you express that, or maybe you don't, maybe you keep that to yourself, but still, I'm not going to say it's not a factor.
Yeah. And by the way, this goes both ways. It's a factor of who you think is attractive, but also who thinks you're attractive. So get your act together too. You shouldn't be walking around going, I'm really out of shape, but my wife should be attracted to me because, she's committed in a relationship with me. No, actually, maybe you're not attractive. Right. And you need to step up your game and take care of your health. So,
yeah.
All right. We good?
I think so. I think we hit that one pretty well.
All right. Craig Cottrell, given current state of our nation and its military, what would be your thoughts on your children joining up?
It's an interesting question. I've spent a little time thinking about this. I think if any one of my kids, as of right now, were to join the military, it'd probably be my oldest. And I would be concerned. I would genuinely be concerned. I would be concerned whether we're dealing with the woke infusion of these types of ideologies that have permeated much of the higher echelons of government, including the higher echelons of military service. I'd be concerned anyways, but this is more troublesome to me. It's more worrisome to me that the military has been infiltrated by a bunch of woke, leftist, ideologically driven buffoons. And it's very disheartening. We're more worried about making people feel comfortable and making sure they can pass the PT test and making sure that women and trans people feel included, when really we should be worried about the efficacy of administering righteous violence against our enemies.
Yeah.
And none of this
helping those people level up.
No, that's actually okay. That's actually not but I do, but that's not the mission of the military. The mission of the military, to your point, is to make our soldiers and our warriors battle ready. Of course, I'll give you that. But it's not to like prop up these people to make them feel good about who they are and special about their own inadequacies. It's to make them battle ready. It's to make them hardened warriors capable of administering violence in the right context. And so the military has always been driven by the mission first. Well, the mission has changed. The mission now is, let's be inclusive and let's be the most inclusive fighting force in the world. I don't give a damn about our inclusivity in the military. What I care about is, can we defend our borders? Can we defend and protect against enemies, both foreign and domestic? And if a woman can do that, if a trans person can do that, if a If somebody who's, not very physical in nature can do that, I'm all on board. I just don't think it's as capable as a hardened warrior who has the mindset and the physicality to do what needs to be done. And what that does, and this is where my concern comes from, is it puts our warriors at risk. Like if my sons or daughter decides to join the military, they're at a greater risk because they are less lethal. They're less capable as a fighting force than we were even 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that's a danger. And that makes me very, very concerned. So if you're listening to this and you're in the military and you're on the path to progression and you want to advance your career and get promotions, I commend you for doing that. But remember what I'm telling you. Your job is to make the soldiers and warriors under you and under your command more lethal, more effective, not more diverse, not more inclusive, not more woke. Remember your purpose, remember your mission. And we have to oust these people. That's the only way to say it. We have to oust these individuals who don't have their heads on straight and aren't worried about the mission of the military. So yes, very concerning. That said, my sons and my daughter can choose their path. When that point comes, I hope that I've trained them and educated and taught them to make good decisions. I hope I've built up a foundation where they can draw upon for experiences they haven't yet been part of, and they can use those lessons to help them make good decisions. But those are their decisions. And I'm not totally comfortable with all the decisions I know they'll make, but those are those decisions. And I have a very short window, about 2 decades, to make sure that I give them everything they need to make good choices and have a good, strong, capable life.
Yeah. I love that analogy of, and we talk about it in the Iron Council. We talk about it with men in our lives and identifying our mission and knowing what the mission is and working towards it. And that the advice that you're giving around the military side, it just transcends everything, right? What's the mission of the school system? Be clear on the mission. What's the mission of parenthood? Be clear on the mission. What's the mission of the military? Be clear on those missions and don't lose oversight of the greater purpose of what you're trying to accomplish for the sake of pandering and or acceptance from social groups or whatever else things might come in way of said mission.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, Kip, will you give me one quick second? Maybe you can ask the question and drive on with some comments on that. I'm alone today. My wife and my oldest are out hunting, and my kids are banging on something downstairs, and they're about to get an earful. So you ask the question, go ahead and answer.
Do you want me to proceed?
I will be right back. Just proceed.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. This is fun. All right. George Sykes, his question: what are your thoughts on addiction and recovery? I've been in recovery from codependent for almost 2 years, and I'm seeing that addiction is a strange disease in that it convinces us that we are not enough as God made us so. We need to drink, do drugs, or engage in reckless behaviors. Yet the moment we begin to do the things we were meant to do and be the people we were meant to be, everything changes for the better. So our thoughts on addiction and recovery, ultimately around that. So, Ryan uses this analogy and well, oh man, I was going to give you some credit before you hop back on. So, well, you know what? I
joined it just the right time. I actually didn't go anywhere. It was a test to see how you would do.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here listening. So
yeah. But did you hear the question though?
No, I didn't hear it.
No. Okay. So, I mean,
my kid was playing with the football in the house is what he was. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm throwing the football, the pass back. It's this football that has this like flat front of it. And he's throwing it against the wall and bouncing it back to him. Like, bro, I just told you I'm on the phone. Like, he's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, you're going to get it. All right. I didn't hear the question.
So the question is really around your thoughts around addiction and recovery. And George was just using an example of, even the addiction of being codependent or drugs and engaging in reckless behaviors and just kind of our thoughts around it.
Did you finish your thoughts though? I mean, it sounded like you were still going.
What I was going to say is you use this analogy that I've completely latched onto of sedating yourself. And I think a lot of, and whether it's, let's be honest, like an addiction is an addiction, right? And now there's like chemicals being and other things. And there's probably a whole lot of dopamine management that we can talk about. But even getting started on a path of addiction, right? Or getting started with these things that quote unquote typically make us addicted, it's a form of sedation. It's a form of not facing that in which we should probably face if we want to grow in a particular way. And so I think when I think about addictions and recoveries, the first thing is don't get there. And one of the best ways we get there is don't try to sedate yourself by avoiding something, right? Like actually like work it through, be self-aware, and don't hide away from the thing that might potentially cause addiction. Now, that's only one analogy. I'm sure addictions start in other ways, whether it's peer pressure or other means, and it's not just a form of sedation, but that's where I was getting started anyway.
I think you're right. I think that could be a method. I do not agree with individuals when they use that as a broad sweeping generality about why people are addicted to drugs or pornography or alcohol. Oh, what are you hiding from? Or what are you running from? That
because it could just be
reason.
Yeah.
It might just be a habit and you're not running from everything, but you're just so deep in this that you've hardwired your brain for dopamine response on that particular substance or that activity. It could be hereditary, right? We know that addiction is hereditary. Yep. My dad was an alcoholic. I learned a long time ago that I'm an alcoholic at heart. And yep. So I can't have a drink, because if I have a drink, I will have all the drinks. And that's not a path I want to go down.
How much do you drink? All of them.
All of it. Put it in front of me and I will drink all of it. And so I can't have a drink because I know. And I'm not running. What am I sedating myself from? Nothing. I love my life. Like it wouldn't be a sedation method. It would just be, there's some things that are built in and hardwired into who I am, into my DNA. And that's something that I'm going to have to be aware of and contend with, So that's something I need to be very cautious of and aware of. So to answer the question though, what are your thoughts? Those are my thoughts around it, but how do you deal with it? Well, you have to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like, are you also an alcoholic at heart? Are you addicted to pornography? Are you running from something like the pain of divorce? That would be a reason to drink or to do drugs or to get into porn. There's like a lot of things you could do because something triggered it. And what a lot of us do is we lie about it. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is you're lying
facing reality. Yeah.
Yes. And so either you're delusional or you're ignorant or you're blatantly lying to yourself.
Pretending. Yeah.
So the first step, and I think Alcohol Anonymous would say, is like, you have to recognize that there's a problem and you have to be real about what the problem is, because nothing will be resolved without you acknowledging that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then what we do from there, and I'm not going to get into the specifics because there's a lot of resources. And I would say, if you want, I think thenewdrug.org or fightthenewdrug.org is a pornography abstinence site.
I'll pull it up.
Alcoholics Anonymous. There's all sorts of resources there that are significantly more equipped to give you what I'm going to tell you to do next. But part one is to recognize, and then part two is to come up with a strategy to overcome. And that might be the 7-step or 12-step I don't even know what it is, 7 or 12-step program, whatever 12. It is, 12-step program, having accountability partners, having activities you can replace it with, having the systems in place to like not have alcohol around you, rewiring habits through some of James Clear's stuff, Atomic Habits, and Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, rewiring
who you hang around,
response, who you're around. Sure.
Yeah.
So acknowledgement, process. So, and I talk about this even in the Iron Council, the two things that the Iron Council has that every man needs in their life, I can say this with 100% certainty, is the network, other men in your corner, all on the same path at varying degrees.
Yep.
And the framework, the system. You gotta have a system. And if you don't, you can't replicate results. And I think the same holds true for trying to overcome certain addictions that might be enticing to you or debilitating to you. network frameworks.
Yeah. Fightthenewdrug.org for porn addiction.
Yep.
One thing that I was speaking with a friend that is a professional in this industry around addictions and drug use. And what I thought was really interesting is he said that most people, if they assess themselves, you know what your drug of choice is, even if you're not.
Absolutely.
Like, I know my drug of choice because I've assessed myself enough to know what drugs I would instantly get addicted to. Right. I'm all like speed. Like I have no, like, seriously, I think about like, if I was like a pothead, right. And I was into weed, I don't feel good being lazy. That doesn't do it for me. Like, I would not want to like be more chill, but I watched the movie like Limitless and I could think, well, hold on a second. I could get more done. I could be more, you know what I mean? Faster. Think like that has my name written all over it. Right. And it's like, and that's part of understanding yourself and what tendencies and what things might kind of draw you in, and being mindful and being real with yourself about them. So
I think it's a good point. I'm the opposite of you in that I would need something to take that edge off. Cause like, I feel like I'm always turned on. My wheels are always turning. I don't fall asleep very well at night, not because I'm not tired, but because like, I'm like, what about this idea? And what about that idea? And then you could do this and then you could do that. And I'm like, stop. Like, sometimes I wish there was a little switch in my brain where I could just like, just turn off sleep mode. But I don't have it. And so I wake up 4 or 5 times a night and I'm thinking about new ideas and new ways to like grow the business. Or before I go to bed, I start thinking about jujitsu and I'm running all these like jujitsu scenarios in my head, or I'm thinking about all the emails I want to write and people I want to have on the podcast and new shirts and hats I want to create and how I want to take over the world. And I'm like, please shut up. I just need you to shut up for a minute.
Yeah, that's funny. See, I'm like, more noise.
No, man, I don't want that noise all the time. I have plenty as it is.
That's funny. All right. Brian Boyd. I have butted heads with the gentleman in the workplace for almost 18 years. Woo! I do my best to like him, but many times I literally get ill in my stomach just being in his presence. In my opinion and observation, he is a bad man. I think the other people see him the same way, but the elephant in the room will not go away. I know I'm responsible for my attitude and thoughts and actions and motives towards him. Do you have any skill sets that I may have overlooked that I can implement to push through my dislike towards him?
One of the red flags that came up as I was hearing you say this is you said there's times where you get like physically ill when you're around him. So like there was
disgusted.
Yeah. And there was a thought that came to my mind because the first thing that you said, or one of the first things was, and I wrote it here, is that you've tried to like him. Like, why you don't have to like him. You have to work with him.
Yeah.
Like the goal of going to work is not to make friends and like people. No, you have to be amicable with people. You have to be cooperative with people. Sure. But you don't like people. Because if your mission is, I want this guy to like me and I want to like him, then that's going to be a tall order. If on the other hand, you change your expectation to, hey, look, I'm not concerned with liking him. Like, we don't have to be buddies, but I am concerned with moving the mission forward. I am concerned with the job. I am concerned with the task or the assignment. That might change the way that you approach him from this trying to be this friendly guy that's making you ill because you're like going against your own instinct. To, hey, you know what? Maybe, and like, I don't know the scenario, so I can't give you specifics, but maybe if you, instead of try to like him, you said, okay, well, like, I'm not going to like him. You've been working with him for 2 decades. Like, come on now. Like, you're not going to like him. He probably doesn't like you. So, okay. Yeah. So put on your big boy pants and realize that you don't have to like everybody. We just have to worry about moving the mission forward. Man, maybe even say that, the guy you've been working with him for 2 decades, say, look, Kip, look, at this point, we're going to agree to, like, we don't like each other. Like, I don't like your attitude. You probably don't like mine. And there's probably some reasons for that over the last 2 decades of working together. But like, I want to get here. I want to do my work well. I want to work with you. I feel like we can drive some some initiatives forward. And what do we need to do to make that happen?
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like a heart to heart with a guy.
Yeah. It allows you to deal in reality. There's something to be said for when I accept Ryan for who Ryan is, then I can work with him, versus if I'm constantly like, no, it shouldn't be this way. He shouldn't be this way. He should be this way and not that way. And then we almost dredge it with us constantly. And whenever there's a struggle of dealing with you, I have to bring up, well, I shouldn't have to do this.
Yes.
Well, guess what? You're going to.
So unless you're the boss and you can fire him.
Yeah. You know, this is so powerful, Ryan, because I've had this conversation with it's actually a family member of mine a few years ago. And we're talking about another family member, which we have some riff. Maybe someday, if I'm drunk, I'll share the story on the podcast. But not anyhow, he asked me, he says, how can you have a relationship with them? And my response to him was, because I choose to, because I've accepted them exactly the way they are. And there's something powerful. I don't have to agree. I don't have to be like, oh, their actions are perfect and what? No, but there's something really powerful to saying, you know what? I choose, and in a family relationship scenario, I choose to love you the way you are. Not because you are this way, not because of that way, strictly on the idea that I choose to, because I want to. And even think about our relationship with our spouses, how real powerful that is, and how much we drag on our spouses of the way they should or should not be constantly, versus just meeting them where they are and going, you know what? I choose to be fully committed to you because I choose to, not predicated on, well, if she did this and, and all these other things. And it's really empowering when we approach relationships that way.
I agree. I think it's a very stoic approach of just, control the controllables and let the others go. But I think there may be some controllable here in that you can just have a real conversation. I mean, in 18 years, have you actually said any of this to this guy? And I'm not saying you do it to create drama, and you do have to be very careful because you don't want to create workplace drama. But if it were me, I think I would at this point say something. And again, let me just reiterate the verbiage I might use. Kip, you know as well as I do that over the past 18 years of working together that we have butted heads.
What do you mean?
Yeah, right. He feels the same way.
I love you. You're like a brother to me.
By the way, this guy probably asked the same question on last week's Ask Me Anything about you.
Yeah, totally. In fact, I think he used your name. In fact, he said, "Hey, Brian Boyd's an ass."
But I would say, obviously, Kip, we've butted heads. We don't get along. And I would be very clear. I would do it more. I think this is diffusing. I would say, I imagine, Kip, you really don't like my personality, and I don't really know why that is. And, if I knew, maybe that would help me understand, and I could attempt to communicate differently or whatever it was. But, at this point, I think we can agree that we don't like each other, but we still have to work together. So what can I do to help make this a better work environment for you and for me, for both of us? Yep. Is it leave you alone and stay out of your way? Is it be more clear in my communication? What can I do to help drive the mission forward and be as amicable as possible at work? Yeah, I would have that conversation.
Totally. And there's so much power when you don't see eye to eye with someone and then backing it up until you do. And what you and I could agree on, what maybe this individual could agree on, is the mission. Right. Of what they're doing as a team within the organization. And if that's the common ground, find what that common ground is, and then make that the focus of the relationship.
Just be very careful about pointing fingers. Yeah. Because you might be falling into a trap, creating some drama, falling into a trap, and throwing yourself under the bus. So I wouldn't go in there and be like, well, I don't like you because you don't do this and you don't do that, and this is what's wrong. And this, no, just go into it assuming there's something wrong with you. Like, hey, help me know what's going on so that I can maybe adjust the way that we communicate or work together.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. All right.
There was
Sean
a thing.
Spire.
Let me
Oh, yeah,
say
go
one
ahead.
other thing that I heard one time, and I think it was Benjamin Franklin. And he's got his 13 virtues and everything, and obviously a wise man, one of the wisest men, and of course, like such a contributor to our country. But he had this theory that if there was people that didn't like him or he didn't like, he would go ask to borrow something from them.
So they could serve him.
So he would go ask for a book. He would say, "Hey Kip, I know you have this book or whatever, and I would like to borrow this book because I'm trying to study on this thing." And so he would borrow a book, and then he would return it within an acceptable time frame. And he found that this actually drew people closer together. And I don't know all the research behind that little anecdote, but that's a very interesting thing is, hey, can you lend me a book? And it changed the dynamic he found between relationships that were strained for one reason or the other. Just an interesting thought.
Yeah. All right. Sean Spire, can you be unreligious yet follow lessons and values from Christianity? Can we teach lessons and values from the Bible to simply be good humans, but not because of a higher power is wanting or watching us to be?
Yeah, of course. That's it. No, I mean, I don't know that there's even more to it. Yeah, look, there's truth everywhere. Totally. I've read individual authors or thinkers, or even people on Instagram or people who criticize what I've done. And like, I may not wholeheartedly agree with everything about who they are and how they show up and what they say. But like in that particular instance, I'm like, oh, that's actually true. That's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that before. Maybe I ought to take that into consideration. And so the point I'm making is if you can learn to compartmentalize and take what you feel will apply to your life and what you think will enhance your life and make you a better person, and it comes from the Bible, I don't think there's any conflict with that. Like I'm not a Buddhist. I used that earlier. I'm not a Buddhist, but I'm sure there's principles in Buddhist teachings that I would say, yeah, that actually is a really good way to live. Stoicism is another one. A lot of Christians, in my experience, have some issues with Stoicism because they think it conflicts with the sovereignty of God and their own individual responsibility. I don't personally see that, but okay, if you think that, but you're telling me you can't extract lessons from Stoicism that maybe wouldn't, or maybe would align with Christian principles or would align with just your own personal worldview. I think we ought to be exploring and looking for truth and lessons that are going to serve us everywhere, whether it's from the Bible or the Quran or any number of religious contexts or teachings. Like, yeah, for 100%, you should do that.
His last portion of his question says, can we teach lessons and values from the Bible to simply be good humans, not because a higher power is watching us, right? Or wanting us to be. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, we shouldn't be doing it for that reason. Anyway.
I don't want to be, that's not why I do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like we shouldn't be doing it because, yeah, exactly. Or, well, I'll do this because I feel like it's required of me. It's like, think about your kids. Do you want your kids to clean the room because you lay down the hammer and you're yelling at them out of fear or whatever? Or do you want your kids to go, hey, I see value in being orderly and taking care of my things, and they do it because they want to?
Right.
Of course you'd want the latter. Why? Because that's sustaining, right? That's going to be way more effective because they see the value in quote unquote teachings that you've given them. So you want buy-in. And I would argue, I mean, I know this isn't Sean's question, but those that are religious, you shouldn't be doing it because of you should be doing it because you are trying to become a better human and you are bought into whatever it is that you're doing. You need to be committed to it, not just passive because it's being forced upon you in your own mind.
Well, and even still, if you're doing it for like a higher power for this outside purpose, you can really easily finagle your way to do things that serve in your best interest if that's your motive. So I'll give you a very small example.
So it's not going to be true following is what you're
saying.
Because
you're going to finagle it. You're going to rationalize and excuse and justify your behavior. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So when we did our main event, I reached out to Origin and I said, hey, I would love you guys to give or to make some rash guards, some Order Man rash guards. I have the design. I've paid for the design. I'll give it to you. You guys print them up, and then get them to me. And I was fully anticipating buying these rash guards from Origin. That was my intent. I'm going to buy these from them. And Amanda, Pete's wife, and she runs a large part of the systems and the structures and organization there at Origin. She messaged me. She's like, "Hey, your rash guards are ready." I'm like, "Great, we'll come pick them up." And so I sent a couple of guys to go pick them up, brought them back. And I was planning on selling them at the event. That was my full intent. I'm going to pay them, then I'm going to sell them. So I text Amanda and I said, "Hey, thanks for getting me these rash guards on such short notice. They did a great job there." And I said, "What do I owe you?" And she says, "You don't owe me anything. This round's on us," which was very gracious of them because it's thousands of dollars of rash guards. It's these beautiful rash guards and there's 100 of them. And so immediately I was like, well, okay, I'm still going to sell them, but I'll sell it at a discounted rate because they gave them to me for free.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, well, that's good because like I'm still selling them. I'm still making money, but I'm giving these guys a discount. So like, but then I was like, no, that's not right. Like, that's not Origin gave them to you and you're going to profit off of that. Like, that's not the right thing to do.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
I would have got away with that. I would have, and probably nobody would have batted an eye. Like the guys wouldn't have not thought anything. They would have thought they were getting a discount. Origin would have been probably maybe okay. I don't know, but like that's not the right thing to do. It's just not. And there's no other motive for me in that moment than no. I want to do the right thing, not for Origin, not for my gut. No, but because doing the right thing
away with,
is the right thing to do. And so I gave every one of those guys those rash guards. Now, since I've gone back and I've bought rash guards from them that I sell, and that's the agreement. And that's a fair agreement because we're both on board and privy to that, all of that knowledge and information. But doing the right thing is enough. There's no other reason. Like, I'm only doing it because God sees me or because somebody else will find out. No, you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, period, full stop, the end. And also you'll reap some karma from that, of course, but that's not the reason to do it either. It's just to do the right thing.
Yeah. And I would suggest and argue that we know what that is.
100% we know.
Yeah.
And then what we do, just like I was trying to do with those rash guards initially, is like, well, I'm giving them a discount. No,
just fine.
No,
my situation's unique. And,
it's not unique. Don't lie to yourself and do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Not that you needed to know that I liked it. All right. Chase Capek.
I did need to know that actually. That just made my week. So thank you very much.
There you go. What are some good strategies and tactics to deal with bad leadership, particularly pastors who blindly accept lies and gossip and use that as a ground to tell people to leave their church group? Other than simply running away, I haven't fought tooth and nail for the last 7 years, fixing my past mistakes and sins for nothing. My family does depend on me. So a little personal scenario.
So if I'm interpreting this correctly, it sounds like Chase's pastor, because I don't have this question in front of me. Chase's pastor is using lies and rumor about him to push him out of the congregation. That's what I'm gathering.
He doesn't say, that's what I would assume too. Like he didn't say it was him. They just, he blindly accepts lies and gossip, right? To justify people leaving the group.
You need to call it out.
Yeah.
Now, if it might be different in an employer situation, but in this pastor religious setting, you need to be like very forthright. So let's do a little role play. Kip, you're my pastor. I come up to you and I'm going to assume. Not forgiven. Yeah. Okay. Well, see you later. I'm going to assume it's about Chase because that's what it kind of sounds like. So I'm going to come up to you and I'm going to say, Kip, I would like to talk with you about something this week. Do you have some time, Tuesday evening at 7:00 or whatever? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So I come in at 7. Hey, Pastor Sorensen, I wanted to talk with you about something. I've had some real problems in my life. I've made some mistakes and I've had some past indiscretions. And I've done some things that I'm not really proud of. I'm just throwing things out here. So I'm not saying this about you, Chase, by the way, but
Yeah.
I've had some fidelity issues. I have had some alcohol and drug abuse issues. And again, I'm not proud of those things. My wife and I and family are working through those together. Everybody knows about what's going on, but I wanted to come talk with you because from my perspective, I think there's some rumors going on within the congregation about me and how I show up. And I'm not denying that I haven't had any of these things happen in the past, but here's what I'm doing to rectify it. And here's what I'm doing to work on it. And I wanted to bring this to your attention because I want to hear it. I want you to hear it directly from me rather than having to guess and assume and hear all these things through the rumor mill. Pastor, what you decide to do from here and how you decide to move forward is in your court at this point. But I wanted to clear the air. I wanted to be respectful of you and your congregation. And I would expect the same of me and my own personal life and the way that I lead my family. So shake his hand, walk away, and then you guys can both make your decisions as grown adults.
Yeah. I love that. And I think the thing that came to mind that I thought you were going to say is like how grateful you are that you are part of a group by which you could take advantage of the repentance process and the atonement and how great that this exists. So I can move past my sins of the past and have a renewed commitment of becoming a better man. Right. And expressing, and you did this, expressing the commitment that you have to leveling up. You know what I mean? Like, and kind of reminding me, right, of like, hey, that's why we're here.
That's
right?
a check.
We're
that's
here
a
to
check to you too, by the way.
Yeah, totally. And
it's a respectful way to check you.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a call for him to step up as a man too. And you know what? Like, regardless of what happens, Chase, when you walk away from a meeting like that, is you're going to feel like more of a man because you are.
Yeah.
You're not engaging in rumors. You're not acting emotionally. You're not throwing a temper tantrum. You're not trying to enact vengeance against anybody. You are addressing a grievance with a specific person face to face, like a man does it. And if he's not willing to step up as a man, why in the world would you want to be part of his congregation anyways? There might be some really telling things here. And I'm not saying it's going to go this way, but he might really reveal some things that if I'm going to follow spiritually another man, I need to know who this guy is and how he conducts himself. And this is a very good way for you to act like a man and for you to find out if he's a man.
Yeah. And influence me, right? Like I could, because he could be pandering to gossip because he doesn't want to have to deal with it. Right. He doesn't want to deal with, these other people being upset about your past or whatever. Exactly. That's why you bringing that up to me levels me up too. Like, you know what? You're right, Ryan. That's why we are here, and I appreciate you coming to the table and being clear with this. Like it's a positive thing for me as well.
Or not.
Yeah.
And then, but you need to know that.
Yeah.
Like you could take that the wrong way and you could really throw yourself your own little temper tantrum and show me how cowardly you really are. And I'm going to be as little as judgmental as possible about that, but I'm also going to make decisions for me and my family, and I'm not going to follow a coward. And somebody who listens to gossip and rumors after the source of the information has come and spoken to him like a man can't deal with that like that. That shows me that individual is a coward, and that's not Christian.
Yeah. I like it. One more question.
One more.
I'm excited about pronouncing this guy's name. I've been working on all week. All right, here we go. Kazuto Kizi Karawanga.
Well, you're celebrating, but we don't know if that's right. Actually, you're just
it doesn't matter. It's right.
Okay,
only me
it's right.
Kizzy though.
There you go, Kizio or whatever. Kip got it right apparently. And if it's wrong, you're wrong. Kip just pronounced himself right. So change your
I
name.
pronounced it correctly for you. Yeah. All right. My 12-year-old daughter is going through a shift and is being very bitchy, sassy, and disrespectful around me and my wife. She also is hurtful to her younger sisters. We're really low on patience, and it takes all my strength not to lash out at her physically, especially when she acts in a hurtful way towards her siblings. I know she's just growing up and battling with her own identity, but how do I love and guide her through this challenging period for all of us?
I think if there's a theme, and look, I'm going to put this out here and take it with a grain of salt because my daughter is 9 years old. She's not a teenager yet.
Yeah.
So, and still she's 9, still she's like, oh my gosh. I think there's a theme though in the conversations that we've had today, and that's just truthful, upfront addressing of situations, right? Whether it's the guy at church, or, you know, addiction, like addressing it and talking with a spouse,
and not being passive about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and being real, like being truthful about other people and yourself. And so in her situation, I think these are the types of conversations I would have. Is not like, hey, you can't be treating people like this, which is true, by the way. But I think the better conversation is, and I would definitely involve your wife, because your wife's been a 13-year-old girl, right? Or 12-year-old girl at some point. So she definitely needs to be involved. You have not. She has. Yeah. So you definitely need to have her involved in this process, and maybe even her head the conversation is, look, hun, you're 12 years old. There's a lot of changes happening with your body. Those are the things that you can see. There's a lot of things happening inside of your body. Those are the things that you can't see. These are your hormones and the chemicals that make you act the way you do and view things the way you are, and the changes of your physical body. Like, this is what happens to us as we get older. And I know it's hard to understand, but these things that you cannot see are affecting the way that you behave. And so we acknowledge that. We actually honor that. It's a good thing. It's healthy.
Yeah, it's part of growing up.
It's part of growing up. You're going through this process. I've gone through this process as a boy turning into man. Your mom has gone through this process as a young lady growing into a woman. We've all gone through it, and we've all gotten through it. But there's also some expectations, and there's also some consequences. And this is what's going to allow you in this transitionary period, get through it smoothly and healthily and in a way that uplifts the entire family. And here's what they are. And then you lay those out very clearly, and you have her buy into that by, what are the consequences? What expectations should I have of you? By the way, what expectations do you have of me?
Yeah.
You know,
and what's the rewards as well? Yeah.
My daughter came to me again. She's 9 years old. And she said, hey, Dad, because we have a rule. We don't close the bedroom doors unless, you know, they're changing or whatever, like that, obviously. But that's a rule. And so she came to me and just an hour ago, and she's like, hey, Dad, can I close my bedroom door and just relax? And I said, well, why do you need to close your bedroom door to do that? She's like, it's just nice because I listen to music and I don't have to hear the boys yelling or fighting or wrestling or whatever. And then I can just listen to my music and just play with my dolls or lay on my bed. Like that to me, I'm like, yeah, for sure. But it also illustrates that she knows the rules.
Yeah.
Because we've clearly communicated the rules, and she's asking for an exception. And I don't think that I have to be so hard on the rules that I can't make reasonable exceptions to the rule. Like, I'm not letting her dictate what she can do. She's the child. I'm the parent. But if she comes to me with a reasonable request and says, I would just like a little peace and quiet for the next 20 minutes, like, I can bend the rule to make that happen. But the point I'm making, and the reason I bring that up, is because all of the rules are laid out. Everybody in the household knows the expectation. And if you want to deviate from the expectation, you have to get express permission to do that from me, the dad, or mom, the mom. And so I think there's some boundary issues here that maybe have been failed to be communicated that might shore some of this up a little bit. And then the other reason I brought that up with my daughter is because I realized that as she gets older, she's got 3 brothers. Privacy is going to be more important to her. Like she needs some privacy. And I have to honor that to a degree, right? Like I can't let her go in there by herself all the time with a computer and a TV or have boys in a room. Of course, like that's taking it to the extreme. That's unhealthy. But I do have to honor that as she changes, my approach to fathering needs to change in conjunction with her needs for privacy or her bodily changes that I'm not totally comfortable thinking about yet, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's how we dress that as fathers, I think, and get the mother hyper involved in that.
Yeah. And what I like about establishing those boundaries and those rules, Ryan, is it allows you to it helps you not react emotionally when those rules are broken, right? Because now it's not about attacking or getting frustrated. It's like, hey, we have the rules, right? We talked about the expectations. Here's the expectations, right? And here's the results. There you go, right? And it's easier versus if those aren't defined, we have a tendency to go around just getting pissed, right? And emotional and because we think our emotional response is the consequence. It's like, no. The consequence has been defined. Just implement it, right? Have the conversation. At least that has allowed me to be way less emotional and be logical in responding to boundaries not being, kept or whatever. I had a couple resources for you. So I actually think that the Harbinger Institute's book, The Outward Mindset, is really, really valuable in this area. And it's really based upon the idea that you need to make sure that you have an established relationship with your daughter. And by having a solid relationship with her, then puts you into a position to provide guidance and support. Sometimes we approach it opposite. Oh, well, if they weren't acting up, then we could have a better relationship. You got to have that relationship in check. Those guys cover that really well. So maybe something to take a look at.
I like that. I'm looking at, I haven't heard of that. So I'm going to look into that for myself.
Yeah. Great book.
There's one other thing that I wrote down here, Kip, is you were saying that I think all kids, especially as they get older, they move from 10, 11, 12 years old into teenage years, is they're really looking for some autonomy in their life.
Yeah.
Right. And they're trying to find,
like you said, normal, right? Like they're
totally
independence.
They're trying to find the balance. My oldest son at the football game, I think I said this, is like, we went to the football game and he's like, "Hey Dad, can I have a couple bucks for some hot chocolate?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I thought he was going to go get hot chocolate and then come back and sit with me. And he went and got hot chocolate and I looked over and he's playing with all his friends and I didn't see him the whole game, And at first I was like, that sucks. Like, what's up, bro? Like, you just take my money and then you don't come back. And that was my emotional thing speaking. And then I was like, no, this is actually good. He wants to be on his own. He wants to be with his friends. He doesn't need to be with me. Like, this is a good, healthy thing, although it's a hit to my ego. So they're looking for autonomy. So one of the things that my wife and I implemented very early on with our disciplining of our kids, and we do this with my 5-year-old, is if there's something that they do where they need a timeout, like I wholeheartedly believe in timeouts because they need a break from the stimulus of what's going on right now to just like mellow down, think about it, like whatever they need to do at their age. So one of the things that we do with our timeouts is we say, you go take a timeout, go sit on the stairs and come back in or come back to the dinner table or come back to play the game when you're ready to be a contributing member of the family. So my oldest is 13. So for 13 years, I've never given my children a timeout where I'm like, you're in timeout for 10 minutes. Never. I always put it on them.
Get their emotions in check. Yeah.
Yep. And so I tell him, hey, bud, you go to timeout. You're being disrespectful at the dinner table. So get down, go to the stairs, sit in timeout. And when you're ready to come back, whether that's in 2 minutes or 30 minutes, we'll be here and you can be a contributing member of the family. And they go and usually 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes passes and they come in and they ask, Dad, can I join the table? And my question is, are you ready to be a contributing member of the family? Yes. Yeah. Good. That's the expectation. Please join us. So I always make them feel welcome to come back, but I do give them a little autonomy, even at age 5, to make a decision of when they're ready to uphold the standard, not to choose what the standard is, but when they're ready to live by the standard.
Yeah. I did the same thing with my 9-year-old or 8-year-old literally yesterday. I'm like, Kalani, you gotta go hang out in the room. let me know when you're ready to talk, because you're
Mhm.
being way too emotional right now. And you need to work through this, you know? And it took about 10 minutes. Hey, Dad, I'm ready to talk. All right.
Yep.
Awesome. What's going on? Why are you upset? Oh, it's because of this. Okay. Are you willing to, are you going to clean your room instead of being complaint? Do you see the value in it? Yes, I understand. All right, good. And we're good to go,
Yep.
So
it's giving, like, I really think that we need to pay our kids the right amount of respect. Some people take it overboard and they let the kids dictate the tone of the family dynamic and the culture. No, but there is enough respect that I respect you as a person. I respect that you have your own thoughts and your own desires and your own way of working through things. I respect that. I'm going to honor that within parameters because you're still my child. And there's something very powerful in it. I don't have all the parenting stuff figured out, but I think there is something powerful in acknowledging that they're little humans, not perpetual babies.
Yeah.
Little
figure
adults.
that out on their own.
Yeah.
I like
young adults. Maybe that's a good way to say it.
Cool.
All right, man.
All right. Well, as always, join us. You mentioned earlier around the Iron Council, the framework in which we have and those relationships. To learn more about our brotherhood, the Iron Council, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, to field future questions in the AMA, or even just to join the conversation with how many?
Almost
other
1,000.
men?
If Reese was here, he would tell us 963 or whatever it is.
1,000 men in the Iron Council, over 100,000 in the Facebook group.
78. You're off by only about 22, 23,000. Close.
Well, after everyone joins right now, after I tell them the URL, we'll be up to 100K.
That's right.
So to join us on Facebook, that's facebook.com/group/Order of Man. And of course, you can get some Order of Man merch at the store. That's store.orderofman.com. What else? Follow Mr. Mickler on Insta. Oh, yeah. I saw those yesterday on your Instagram account.
I'll get one sent to you. I probably shouldn't promote this because they're probably already sold out, but these went quick. Anyways, we got stuff in the store. We'll be getting restocked here quick. That's a great way to support us.
Oh, yeah. You got holiday season coming up. You guys better
get on it.
Up well.
And supply chains are down and busted and broken and delayed and everything else. So we're trying to stay on top of it, guys, but we appreciate you and your patience. All right, you guys, we'll be back. This will be Ask Me Friday. We'll be back Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.